The hunger for being rich starts here. The rich don't work for money. Luckily, writer and his best friend Mike were in the same whereas all the doctors, lawyers would send their children to. And because of those rich kids, they own all materialistic things such as new bicycles, new baseball bats and new cars, etc. And because of this, the writer and Mike always felt left out and poor. And this is where they chose to become rich. Here is our first learning, which is also saying by one of the biggest tech YouTubers and also a very successful businessman, Shlok Srivastav.
I think it is all a choice. ज़्यादा चीजें choice है. Being rich is a choice. Being successful is a choice. Being healthy is a choice.
Both writer and Mike did not know what exactly to do, but they agreed upon being partners. And this is how writer's first partnership was formed. And the next upcoming weeks, writer and Mike thought a lot about an idea for their business. And eventually, they came down to an idea that Mike got from a science group. I will explain it in short. Both of them went to the neighborhood and asked them if they could give the toothpaste tube. And back in those days, toothpaste tubes were not made of plastic. They were made up of lead. What they would do is they would melt that toothpaste tube till it turns into the plaster of Paris mold. Then they would pour that into the milk cartons. And one day, the writer's father, that is the poor dad, passed by and stopped them and was just checking what the two boys were trying to do. As soon as poor dad entered, he saw that they were casting nickels out of lead. Then, very polite, poor dad explained both what the word counterfeiting meant. Basically, it was illegal. But just after that, writer's father said some very impactful lines. Both of you had shown great creativity and original thought. Really proud of you. Just keep going and don't quit. After hearing that it was illegal, Mike and writer just gave up. And then writer said to Mike, I think Jimmy and friends are right. We are poor. Just then his father turned around and said, it is also a very important lesson for us. You are only poor if you give up. Most people just think and dream of getting rich. But you have done something. And I will say it once again, that keep going, don't quit. While leaving, poor dad said that if you really want to learn how to make money, then ask Mike's dad. Dad is the person whom writer calls rich dad. Mike couldn't believe his ears. Then he asked, if my father is rich, how come we don't have a nice car and a nice house just like the other rich kids at the school? To which poor dad replied that a nice car and a nice house doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to make money. So here we get our third learning. It is not about owning things, but when you earn an X amount, it is about how you use it. That is the difference. And Rich Dad was a visionary. He would reinvest a large amount of money he earned into building his empire. Rich Dad basically owned a warehouse, a construction, a chain of stores and 3 restaurants. So here we get a fourth learning. In order to be rich, you need to have multiple sources of revenue. Just like the example I gave you before, Shlok Bhaiya he runs multiple businesses. So now the two boys were excited again and they decided to meet Mike's father. The writer walked into the simple, small and tidy house of Rich Dad. The writer says, as I walked in, I saw a cheap mat just inside the house. The point I want you to understand is how just see the amount of expense Rich Dad spent on his luxuries. And this is one of the most common things that you will find in most of the successful people. That they have less expenses, they invest more. For example, Sir Warren Buffett. He is one of the most richest person, but still he lives in his old and small house. After entering the house, writer saw a lot of people there. And when he asked Mike about it, Mike replied that the older man manages the warehouses, whereas the 3 women were the manager of restaurant and the other young man was the construction supervisor. And just before you enter, another construction supervisor who is building a track of houses just left before you came. So here is our 5th learning, which I find less practiced in India. That is delegating work and building a team. At first you have to work alone, but after you reach a certain height, you must build a team and delegate the work in order to grow more. After some time, Rich Dad walked in and made a very straightforward offer. He said, I will teach you, but not the classroom way. You have to work for me, then I will teach you. To which writer asked, can I ask a question? To which Rich Dad replied, no, take it or leave it. And then he said, which is also our 6th learning, that if you can't make up your mind decisively, then you will never learn to make money anyway. The opportunities come and go. Being able to know when to make quick decisions is a very important skill. Writer and Mike had a baseball game that day, but still they decided to learn instead of playing. The work was at the Super 8. Rich Dad would pay them 10 cents per hour. They would have to work 3 hours every Saturday. Writer says it was executingly boring work. And after 3 weeks, writer was ready to quit. 10 cents weren't that exciting. So ladies and gentlemen, here is the twist. This time Mike smiled. Writer asked, what are you laughing at? With anger and frustration. To which Mike replied, we will find it out in the next video of this series. He was highly educated and the other never finished his 8th grade. Yet one always struggled financially and the other became the richest person. What actually made this difference? The answer is actually very straightforward. Mindset.
वेळ लागल्याशिवाय इतिहास घडत नाही.
Till then, stay hungry and keep learning.